In today's video, an experienced outdoorsman and Forest Service law enforcement officer was brutally mauled and killed while riding his bike in the trails. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. This is the terrifying grizzly bear attack on Brad Treat. Welcome to Final Affliction. West Glacier, Montana is a place full of breathtaking beauty. This small town is nestled in the heart of the famous Rocky Mountains, surrounded by towering peaks, sparkling rivers, and dense forests. It boasts over 700 miles of hiking trails, countless crystal-clear lakes, and a vast array of wildlife. It is home to the Glacier National Park, from which locals as well as visitors can spot grizzly bears roaming the hillsides, moose wading in the waters, and eagles soaring overhead high in the skies. It is truly a place where the natural world takes center stage as the beauty of the outdoors is on full display. Brad Treat was a Forest Service law enforcement officer in the Flathead National Forest. He and his wife Summer Treat lived south of the Glacier National Park, a prime location that gave them unrestricted access to the Green Gate hiking trails. From their backyard, the couple was able to see the breathtaking views of the surrounding landscape. From a vast expanse of towering trees to rolling hills with sparkling streams, to them it was all they needed. I mean, what more could they ask for? It was a haven for outdoor enthusiasts, and boy did they love hiking and biking on this trail. Every morning, Bradley would jog alongside his wife for hours. He would also bike on the trails as many as 6 times a week, and being competitive, he would push himself harder to beat his previous record. And so it was no surprise when on the 29th of June 2016, Bradley invited his friend, whom we will refer to as Josh in this video, for biking on the trail. It was Josh's first mountain bike ride ever, and he was more than excited to join Bradley. It was a sunny Wednesday and the clocks were striking 1:30 p.m. when Bradley and his friend Josh hopped on their bikes and cycled to the trail. Being the first time for Josh, the rush of adrenaline and the feeling of freedom was unbeatable as they tackled twists and turns on the Green Gate hiking trail. As they navigated through the dense forests and over the rocky paths, they couldn't help but enjoy the exhilarating experience. The rugged terrain and natural obstacles provided a thrilling challenge. The wind whipped through their hair, and all they could hear was the crunching of gravel and dry leaves under their tires. They wanted more. Bradley, who was more familiar with the trail, found himself drawn into the moment, and he cycled like never before. He was cycling at a speed of 25 miles per hour, which is equivalent to a coyote chasing its prey at top speed. The crisp, fresh air filled his lungs, invigorating him with each breath. The trail was narrow with dense forest cover and thickets on both sides. They weren't planning on biking for long and thus had carried no bear spray, cell phones, or even rifles in case they encountered an aggressive animal while on the trail. The extras would also be heavy and tedious to cycle with, hence they saw no need of carrying them. Soon, Bradley was already leaving a gap between him and his friend Josh, who was struggling to keep up with his pace. He was leading the trail, and as he was negotiating a sharp blind corner, he slammed into something huge. His speed and the thick forest cover on the sides of the trail had obscured his view beyond the corner. He didn't have time to steer evasively or even skid to avoid the collision. It was a huge grizzly bear. The collision bolted Bradley into the handlebars of his bike and then over the bear. Newton's first law, or as we like to call it, the law of inertia, was in play. He knew that he would come thudding into the ground, and so he tried to break his fall with his hands. The impact of the fall made him break both of his wrists as well as his left scapula. Josh, who was 25 yards behind on the trail, heard the collision followed by a loud growl from the bear as if it was hurt. He couldn't see the bear or his friend Bradley, but he instinctively knew that something was amiss. He slowed down around the curve just in time to see the bear standing over Bradley. Standing on its hind legs, the bear towered over Bradley with its keen, piercing eyes fixated on him. Its massive body was covered in shaggy fur, the color of honey, but it was visibly mad over the collision. Josh and Bradley were scared and humbled by its presence. At this moment, Bradley was in excruciating pain. He tried to crawl away, but his efforts were futile. The bear let out a deafening roar, and with its sharp claws extended and ready to attack, it swiped at him. With the claws tearing through his flesh, Blood spilled onto the ground, mixing with the dirt and the leaves. Bradley knew that he had met the raw power of nature in this untamed wilderness. His movements grew sluggish and weak as the bear continued swiping its claws and biting him. His helmet was crushed into pieces by the bear's mighty biting force. Bradley was helpless. With no bear spray, a rifle, or a cell phone, Josh knew that he couldn't confront the bear. For a moment, he froze. Fear gripped his heart like a vice. He didn't know what to do to save his friend, but he knew that he had to get help. The bear had all its attention turned to Bradley and didn't notice the presence of Josh. With this narrow window of escape, Josh got on his bike and pedaled as fast as he could. His legs pumped frantically as the forest whipped past him in a blur while he navigated the rugged terrain. He leaned into the winding trail, narrowly avoiding colliding with trees and branches as he raced back the direction they had taken towards help. From afar, he heard the sound of vehicles and pushed himself harder, desperate to reach the highway before it was too late for Bradley. The vehicles were traveling on Highway 2, which was approximately 1 mile away from the trail. This meant that Josh couldn't continue cycling as the shortest route was through the thick forest. He had to bushwhack off trail. He clutched his bike tightly to his side, the metal frame clanging against the trees as he stumbled through the underbrush. His breaths came in ragged gasps as he tried to make ground on Highway 2. His forehead glistened with beads of sweat as the sun beat down on him, making him feel as though he was running through a sauna. He pictured Bradley crying for his help, an image that made him redouble his efforts. He saw the highway up ahead and continued to push himself to the limit. As he burst into the open, Josh saw a vehicle that he flagged down amidst his gasp for air. His lungs were burning. He was immediately driven to a phone where he called the 911 dispatch team. The initial police respondents then promptly arrived at the scene of the attack. They found Bradley's lifeless body in a pool of blood and his bike next to him with his helmet bitten to pieces. He was confirmed dead with none of his body parts mauled by the bear. Forensic analysis of the hair and swab samples collected from Bradley and his helmet indicated that the tenacious beast was an 18 to 20-year-old male grizzly bear that had no prior incidents of human-bear conflict. It was estimated to weigh 370 pounds, showing how enormous the bear really was. Since grizzly bears in Montana are federally protected under the Endangered Species Act, Bradley's incident was probed by a board consisting of Natural Resource Agency employees. Investigations from the attack scene showed that the confrontation was not a predatory attack, but rather a surprise contact. The bear was probably on the wrong trail at the wrong time, and so was Bradley. The conclusion to the findings was drawn from the facts that no part of Bradley's body had been consumed by the bear and also that he had not been buried. This is because bears have the custom of covering items they intend to store and return to use or maul later. They cover them with any available debris and dirt and use their strong sense of smell to retrace their steps, returning to their kill at a later time. Despite the forest being home to over 1,000 grizzly bears, Bradley's encounter was the first incident in Montana where a biker had been killed by a bear. His wife, Summer Treat, urged people to remember Bradley for his service and not for the gruesome way he died. It was a tragic reminder of the dangers that lurk in the wilderness and the need to always be prepared. While attacks like this are rare, once a grizzly targets you, chances are you're about to meet your final affliction.